Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wall Street Hackers, the show on the Pod TV network, which we discuss investments, the market, and also Peter's pick, which is some stocks that you may not even have looked at. But that's because he does his research and he loves this stuff. With that, we're going to bring in the hacker himself, who's a graduate in economics from UCLA. He also has an MBA from NYU and a law degree from the University of Miami, spending 17 years, which is a long time on the streets of Manhattan. None other than the hacker himself. Let's bring in Peter Bennett. Peter,
Hey,
welcome
Nick.
to your
Hi,
show.
hi, audience. We're back after a 2 week break. And you're right, Nick. Oh my gosh, sometimes I work so hard. I spend
I
about
know you do.
20 hours out of the last 35 or 30 just working
Right,
because they made some changes in the portfolio and looking at companies. And it's a full-time job to really analyze companies. And I
that's
spend
true.
a lot of time on it.
Right.
So, anyway, markets, as we always start with, a lot has gone on in the last few weeks, and in some ways, nothing has gone on. Fed Chairman Powell gave a speech. He basically repeated the Fed's narrative, and he's not really conclusive at all. But what's interesting is he didn't include any updates and data, a little bit or at all, on labor and inflation. And that's because he probably doesn't want to. The labor market strengthened a lot, and inflation has accelerated. And the Fed is going to have to face this, which we've been saying for months and months. The stock market is basically in a mania to a point, and I'll explain why. At some point where I think it's the very gradual increases have been maybe made sense, but the part of the mania is because they expect these rate decreases because of Fed Powell's speech, which is, I thought, really off the mark. So here's some facts that have to be addressed, to say the least. One, since the December FOMC meeting, the labor market is strengthening. And we just had this 2 months of strongest job gains in the last 12 months. That's the wrong direction. Number two, average hourly earnings increased in January at the highest rate since January 2002. Let me repeat that. The highest rate of hourly increases in January since April 2002. That was a 0.6% rate annualized. That is way above the Fed's target, and again, the wrong direction. Number three, the core CPI and core PCE spiked 0.4% in January, which is consistent with around a 4.8% inflation rate annualized, way off the mark of the Fed's goals. And finally, another key, the Fed has been referencing the PCE services ex shelter and energy as the measure of sticky inflation. They've really emphasized this. So what happened in January? A 0.7% month over month increase. That's 8.4% annualized on that key sticky measure. And ready for this, the highest number in 10 years. This is getting to be, it was never under control, as we've been saying for a year and a half, whatever, and the market keeps expecting it to be soft landing and everything's going to be good and inflation will be under control. But it's even worse because I'm thinking, I don't think it'll happen, but the Fed actually should raise rates now. And I don't think they will because it's an election year, because of a lot of reasons. They're going slightly high for longer. But I always said this was a very experimental theory that you could not cause a lot of pain or a little pain and slow inflation gradually. Well, it doesn't seem to be working. So meanwhile, the media today, I just heard on radio 5 minutes ago, new high for the S&P, new high. So it sounds good, and it probably gets a lot of people into the market, but let's look at the facts. At the end of 2021, we're talking about 2.25 years roughly, the SPY, which is an indicator of the S&P 500, obviously, was at 470. And yesterday, at the close, it was at 510. That's about 3.5 to 3.7% return per year, which includes, by the way, just 7 magnificent stocks that are very high, sky high. I'm not saying they won't go higher, although at least 3 or 4 of them are starting to hit real trouble now. But the other thing is, and some people are saying it's the Magnificent Four now. That would be another whole show. But the point is that even with those stocks, the market is not kept up with inflation. So you are losing money in the market right now. And had you been in a 5% T-bond for 2 years, you can get a 5% short-term T-bond, T-bill or T-bond today. T-note, I should say. You would have beaten the market. So new highs, wow, great, except for not in reality. So none of this changes Wall Street Hackers' general philosophy. I realized a while ago now, or a few shows ago, it's not that I'm against the market. I think, first of all, there are great opportunities in the market. You have to be extremely selective. You want to own energy and pipelines because they're the place to be, especially in an inflationary environment. And so it's possible, and the Wall Street Hackers portfolio has done very well in the last few years, and we've killed the S&P 500. And I think we'll continue to because nothing has really changed. So there's likely to just continue with these long-term challenging issues. Inflation is not under control. We're talking about unemployment near 50-year lows. Tomorrow will be interesting with the report come out. The government is spending at record levels, and there's unfunded deficits that are unbelievable, and nobody's addressing that at all. But Medicare and Social Security are heading for financial cliffs. And oil helped for that 6 months, and I pointed that out. Oil was going down from June to January, and it was very unlikely to continue. Now oil is going up. And even if it just stayed flat, you wouldn't get that benefit of decreasing oil. So quotes of the week, 3 of them. One from somebody named Wolf Rector. I follow him among many people on Seeking Alpha. Quote, worst monthly spike of core services PCE inflation in 22 years, and not just housing. Second quote from Fed Governor Waller. Quote, delaying rate cuts by a few months is unlikely to hurt the economy. He was hinting at a delay beyond the May 1st meeting. This is how it's been going for months and months and over a year. Oh, there's going to be a Fed rate in month decrease in month, 3 months. Oh, no, it's another 3 months, another 3 months. We're not anywhere near it. And finally, Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon threw cold water on expectations that the Fed will be able to execute a soft landing. In a February 28th meeting, he said, quote, the market is way weighted to a very soft landing. And when you look at the pattern of facts, the last 3 or 4 years, it's hard for me to see it's going to be that simple. Yeah, it's not that simple. It's not easy to fight inflation and keep the economy going without any damage. So 5 most interesting stories of the week. This first one's unbelievable. I hope it goes viral. You should share it with everybody. And I don't know if anybody's put it together quite the way I have, combining this article with another article. But number 1, toxic shock to EVs echo credibility. Worse than gas cars for pollution study. This was in today's New York Post. Electric vehicles, according to a study by a firm Data Analytics, release more toxic particles into the atmosphere and are worse for the environment than gas-powered cars and their counterparts. EVs, and the reason is because brakes and tires on EVs release 1,850 times more particle pollution compared to modern tailpipes, which have efficient exhaust pipes, bringing gas-powered vehicles' emissions to new lows. So gas is going down, but it's the tires and the brakes that are releasing huge amounts of pollution. The reason for this is EVs are now on average 30% heavier than gas-powered vehicles, and the brakes and tires on the battery-powered cars wear out faster than on standard cars. Just another hidden expense of owning an EV, by the way. And this really throws doubts into the efforts of the Biden administration about EV mandates. Now, combine this with an article that I emphasized, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago from the Manhattan Institute. And it said that basically there are vast mining of critical minerals that are required for EV batteries. So we're talking about an average electric car battery weighing 1,000 pounds, requiring the extracting of some 500,000 pounds of materials. So according to that study, and the Target study didn't go into this, according to that study, EVs were marginally better for the environment, but according to, I think it was like 75% of the benefits were used up by this materials issue, because you're doing so much mining that uses a lot of fuel and also destroys the environment to a good extent. So, but if you combine this study and about the tires and the brakes with the combined amount of mining that it takes for a single battery, you might say that EVs could be maybe twice as bad as gas-powered engines for the environment. That might think some some government rethinking of what they've been doing. And it reminds me, by the way, of in a company we followed called Enviva, and they were a wood pellet company, and I'd recommended them for a while, and then I said, get out. And I got out because it was a big deal. They were making wood pellets. It was going to help the environment. Countries in Europe were buying it. Now they are bankrupt. And the reason is because they weren't helping the environment. And that's what I figured out. More and more people started questioning it. So I don't even know if EV is going to be around in 5 or 10 years when this gets out, because it's worse than gas cars. There's a lot of evidence for it, and we're making a lot of efforts. Number two interesting story, if that's not enough. So everybody knows that a lot of people have heard that Trump is beating Biden in the polls. The New York Times Siena College poll, which, by the way, these polls generally slant things towards the Democrats because of participation and the way they do it. They're usually inaccurate, but they have Trump up 5 points. And as we pointed out, one of the main reasons is Trump is now polling, according to these polls, 23% of black voters, and is almost even on Hispanic voters, 46 to 40, where he had big leads. And this is really a reflection of what's going on in politics today in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is taking so many progressive and unpopular positions. Not many people in America are pro-crime, anti-victim, pro-open borders, totally open borders. And how did the Democrats get this way? Well, step by step, I go with the reason is because that they're so far astray right now. And they have some, or could have some arguments on some issues that are good. And they have one or two issues that, obviously they can make acceptable arguments to a lot of people, like on abortion, but they could make better arguments. They could have more intelligent positions. But my thing is, I know a bunch of people who are very liberal and very intelligent, but they only watch the mainstream media liberal outlets. And most of them are, but especially if you watch CNN or MSNBC or NBC, for that matter, you read the New York Times, you only get one side of the story. And so they're so far off it and so many stories. So the problem is, I've heard so many liberals say, oh, I never look at Fox News. I never would read the Post. These are quotes. I don't like what they're saying. It's like, you may not agree with what they're saying, but you need to get both sides. And so I have a feeling that a lot of Democratic politicians are basically believing their own stories because it's a cycle. And they just get their news from things that reinforce what they believe. And that's the way the human mind works to a point. So number three, interesting story. So Harvard has now released President Claudine Gray. Did I say her name? Yes, Gay. Sorry, Claudine Gay, because they found out that she had done plagiarism in 47 different cases. So they fired her as president. Also, she had a horrible speech, horrible presentation before Congress on anti-Semitism and on campus, and that was unpopular. But so they released her, and this is just a reflection of the elite thinking and the elite institutions. So they kept her on faculty, and her salary is $900,000. They kept her with the salary of $900,000. Now, who pays for all the efforts of the elite colleges to build their new buildings and have their teachers teach maybe 2 or 3 classes in many cases? It's a middle class in many cases, or at Harvard, maybe not. But in any case, the taxpayers pay for it in a way. It's just a shame. It's just so far out of thinking, not the brightest, unfortunately, in many cases. Another example of sort of out of control thinking is New York Governor Hochul and the legislature of New York is now creating a state reparations commission. So they're going to look at the issue of slavery and see who deserves money. Now, here's the problem with that. One, New York State has very large budget issues, not as bad as some states like Illinois, probably California, but I wouldn't buy their muni bonds. But they have underfunded pensions, and things are going to get worse probably in New York for a lot of reasons. But how in the world can you say 150 years ago this happened, and now we're going to pay you X amount of dollars? You're an individual. Maybe you're a successful individual. Whatever. You can't measure that. It's not a direct impact. And most important, it advances the victimhood mentality, which is the exact opposite that will help raise people up who are, in poverty. Finally, sorry, soda drinkers. Workouts, according to a study by the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, are rendered worthless by soda consumption. According to their study, which is 100,000 adults over 30 years, drinking just 2 ounces of soda, 2 12-ounce cans of soda per week, wiped out the benefits of heart gains on exercises. The study did say that the researchers conceded that artificial drinks didn't have quite the same impact, or didn't have the impact, but they concluded that best option is to drink water. It probably is. I always thought so. So anyway, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the pick of the week and our discussion of the week. See you soon.
One of the things that business owners forget a lot is to prepare for their own retirement.
Hi, my name's Nick Palavita, and today I'm with a very special guest, a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement plan specialist, and president of National Pension Partners, Max Culiet. Max, tell me what you do at National Pension Partners.
Well, Nick, we help successful small businesses and professionals put together retirement plans that provide them the maximum retirement benefits and big tax deductions at the same time.
Well, how do you do this?
Well, we get on an internet conferencing system with the client. We review their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then put together strategies to help them in implementing a retirement plan that benefits them, not everybody else.
Well, that sounds really good, but how much does this cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner, and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office, to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252.
And we're back. So what to do, as we said for 2.5 years, own energy and especially pipelines. My theory is oil and energy is the best place to be in, especially if there's inflation. The cost of getting oil out of the ground goes up with labor, with transportation, and it's the safest. Gold maybe, but it doesn't correlate that well. So you have to own some energy, and that's been a big part of Wall Street Hackers' portfolio. Also, own dividend stocks with whatever stocks you have. Our favorite study shows that over 50 years to 2022, dividend stocks outperformed the S&P 500 by double and annualized, and triple for the dividend growth and initiators. So dividends are the place to be. Plus, it's nice to have the flow. It helps you stay with it. So talking about the dividend pick of the week, first disclaimers, this show's for entertainment only. It's only our opinion, and there's no guarantee. Of course, there's no guarantee on anything. So consult your financial advisor. This week, Sitio Royalties Corp, STR. And Sitio owns mineral and royalty interests throughout the United States, large tracts of land, basically, and rents it out, basically, to big oil producers. So Wall Street Hackers has about a 2.5% allocation to STR. along with another 2.5% to other energy producers. I think it's critically important to own some energy producers. Why? And why wouldn't I own more, by the way? Well, because I'm about 35% energy now. I just sold some MPLX because it's gone up from like I recommended it 2 years ago. I've owned it longer, but at about maybe 18. Now it's about 40. It's still a large allocation MPLX, and I still like it, but you can't have, it starts becoming the whole portfolio if they grow too fast. So, but the thing is, to have some royalty and oil producers is critically important, just in case. If oil goes through the roof, it's about the only thing I can think of that would really hurt dividend stocks, and especially the pipelines, because people will keep using the pipelines unless it gets too expensive. So to have 5% in, that's a CVO Realty SDR. I don't know what that is actually. It's STR, Sitio, SITIO royalties. Anyway, so that's why I don't know more, but that 5% is a very important hedge, and it's part of a balanced portfolio. What do I like about STR? One, it's a C Corp with an 8.8% dividend yield. It just raised it. And it also just announced a $200 million share buyback, which should be healthy. Its debt to asset is an extremely impressive 0.18 times, almost no debt. And it's very hard to find investments even in energy that are so oily oriented. SDR is about 50% oil production, 25% natural gas liquids, which correlate very highly with oil, and only get about 25% natural gas. It's really hard to find that. Wall Street Hackers likes oil more than natural gas. There's a lot of natural gas out there. Prices are way down. Oil, not so much. That's why they're in the middle of the ocean drilling for 15% of production right now in the United States. And that's expensive because there's only limited amounts of oil. So I like to be there. So it's an important hedge, I think. And so we have to move into the panel discussion of the week. A very complicated issue, obviously all over the news for several years now. What should the U.S. do about Ukraine? And Nick should be joining us shortly. There he is. Hey, Nick. So quick background. When it comes to Ukraine, there are many questions. And look, there's no clear answers, but I do have some conclusions. A little background. Number one, in 1991, Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. It had had thousands of nuclear weapons left by the former Soviet Union. And in 3 years later, 1994, the US, the UK, and Russia, quote, guaranteed Ukrainian safety. Oops. Next, and that's the Russians too. Number 2 point, when the Russians invaded, many people thought that it was going to be a very quick war, a week, 2 weeks. I said at the time, I said, nobody knows that because World War I, they said would last 3 to 4 weeks the most. And I said, this could easily be a long battle. It doesn't look like it's going to be immediate. We're still in the middle of it. Number 3, the Biden administration has been saying that there is an urgent need for Congress to pass more Ukrainian military aid. The Republicans are more concerned about open U.S. borders, aid to Israel, and also accountability on U.S. aid. So there's sort of a deadlock there. Number 4 point is Europe has been underfunding their NATO obligations, many of their countries, for years. President Trump to meet those obligations, and he got them to, some of the countries, to meet them or better meet them. And then he was accused of not liking the NATO, countries because he was forcing them to actually pay up what they promised to pay. The 5th point is the U.S. is short on arms right now, and Republicans say that if Taiwan is attacked, we will only have enough ammo for about 8 days of war. That doesn't seem very secure. And finally, the EU said in January it will ramp up production of ammunition and promised 15 million, but as of March, it's only met half their obligations. They're being very slow to meet those obligations to give Ukraine enough war ammo to continue. So, Nick, this is a tough question. What do you think? What do we do?
Okay, first of all, the Pod TV network, we have a show twice a week that broadcasts from Kyiv, Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So we have a Ukraine show Tuesday and Friday at 11 o'clock. Eastern time from Kyiv. And with that, we get people that are on the ground in actually Kyiv, Ukraine. And Sasha, who's actually originally from Odessa, also hosts the show, along with John Lockwood, who's a former colonel of the U.S. military intelligence. So with that, I do get reports usually twice a week on that. Here's the problem. Aircraft, they do not have enough aircraft. And,
True.
you know, today you need aircraft to win the war. You need those F-16s. You need the F-35s. And
Nick,
we
I
have
just want to point out we have 4 minutes left because we're going to stay to the 30. So we have to.
Oh, yeah. We have to land the airplane here on time.
Exactly.
But I think what we need to do is send them plenty of aircraft, and that'll change the balance.
Let me ask you this: if we send them aircraft, are you concerned that it might lead to World War? I'm not saying it will or won't.
I think that's the reason America is slow to move.
Yeah, because now they could attack Russia. What happens?
It's almost like we're trying not to win the war. If we want to win
or
the
not
war,
to get into a world war. This is why it's complicated. So that's a good point. The aircraft is one of the reasons why I think it might be a stalemate for a long time. It's not easy for them to gain ground. So here's my 3 conclusions. One, I think some of them at least are fairly clear. One, the Europeans should be forced to meet their obligations to NATO. Trump did it to a point, and I'm not like whatever about Trump, but the thing is, why aren't they all meeting their obligations? This should be their number one concern, because if Russia is a threat to them, and so they should be doing more, and they should be forced to be doing more. Number 2, in the short run, the question is can there be a forced settlement? And President Zelensky, I believe, has promised not to give an inch of land or a foot of land in Ukraine up. He is like, nope, never, never. Putin needs a victory, or somewhat of a victory, if he's ever going to leave. So we have a total stalemate politically. So if there was a forced settlement in the short run, I know it would help the Ukrainian people because they wouldn't be in the middle of a war. In the long run, you can argue it either way, and I have no conclusions there, because that would give Russia a victory, moving westward. And so it's hard to predict what would happen there. It's hard to predict the future. But what's clear is that, there's not going to probably be a forced settlement the way things are. And that's my 3rd conclusion, which is if President Biden wins another term, he and the Europeans are unlikely to force a settlement. If President Trump gets back in office, I think he's going to try. And he's going to push the Europeans and Zelensky to say, look, you're going to give up a small strip of land. And that's the only way this thing is going to settle, because it could go on for 10 more years. If they're not forced to settle. You have 2 intractable parties. They fight over feet and inches and miles, and they're both in a way are fighting for their lives. So I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens in the election. But I know the president's goal will be to force a settlement. I would think that's what I would do anyway, because we don't want to be in war in the next 20 years. These are very expensive. It's not good for anybody in terms of the United States. So we have 1 minute left, and so we have to go. We'll be back next week. As Kim always says, get healthy, get wealthy. Thanks for watching Wall Street Hackers, and spread that news about EVs to everybody you know. This is unbelievable news. You take those 2 stories together, EVs could be twice as bad as gas vehicles. That's kind of a little bit of a shock. So anyway, we'll see you next week. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nick.